Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Inverted Podcast, where we talk about things that are around security, infra, quality, basically everywhere when success is when nothing happens. And we're joined again by the amazing Christina. Thank you for joining us for another week. We really love you and your input. So say hi to everybody.
Hey folks, happy to be here.
And welcome, as always, to my friends Dario, Dana, and Tom. And happy birthday, Dana.
Happy birthday,
Thank you.
Dana.
Happy
And
birthday.
thanks for getting up early on your birthday to join us. That's a big honor.
All right. Only for you guys.
And today we're going to do something a bit different because there's this really well-established framework called the business model canvas, and we want to go through that today and see if it's the same for security products and businesses as it is for normal. And in order to start us off, Dario, why don't you sort of introduce the business model canvas to us?
Yeah, happy to. Once we started to talk about that we want to make this episode, I just reminded that it used to be such a great tool that I was useful in so many projects and products but I haven't used it in 10 years. So I'll have to do some retrospective to figure out why I stopped using it, and maybe I'll find more opportunities. In general, what it is, it's really a strategic tool that helps you visualize and design how a business creates and delivers value. So it's a template that you can fill in. It allows you really to break down the business into what is on the view as like nine building blocks or 9 key building blocks. You group it into how you operate, how you reach customers, and how you make money. So if you look at the right side of this canvas, it's customer segments. You define who do you serve, who are your prioritized audiences, and these types of things. You have value proposition, where you indicate what are the problems you solve or benefits you provide to those customers you have identified. You define what channels you're using to deliver your product. And then you define what type of customer relationships do you build up. How do you engage with your customers? Could be self-care, self-service, personal support, community-based engagement, automation, any types of ways you see fit best. And then you define what are your revenue or value streams. Like how do you make either money, as in like hard cash, or generate other values for your company through this project or product. On the left side, you focus on operations, like key resources. You document all of your assets that you need, technology, people, brand, patents, equipment, these types of things. You also define the key activities, like they're the core of the things you need to do. You need to do research, product development, marketing, sales, operations, etc. And then you identify the key partners. Like who are the external organizations that really help you succeed in this project? It could be suppliers, distributors, platforms, third-party dependencies in general. And then at the bottom, you really document what are the major costs, what are the main cost drivers for you to operate that business or new product or set up a project. And yeah, I just remember it often being a really interesting tool at the beginning of a project where you really have a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, but need to bring them in some type of a structure. And then you have something you can hang up on the wall and remind you and everybody in the project on what you defined at the beginning to have like an anchor to stay put onto. So at least for like these traditional projects, it has been a very useful tool to start and to stay focused in my experience.
So I've used this in my startup when we were doing my startup Trivio, where we were doing a road mapping tool for big projects back in the day when OKRs weren't existing yet in Europe. And I remember being in the incubator or accelerator of Telefonica in Barcelona, and we would pull out sometimes these big A3 or A2 size papers and just do these business model canvas. And I remember it was a great tool for me to discover forgotten items, gotchas, or for example, to find things that were more valuable than I thought they would be, or especially when you do them with 2 or other 3 people at the same time, and 2 other people look at your business like this. It's almost like a video game, right? There's a map of your business, everything is on there. and then they'll be like, hey, that's kind of an opportunity. Are you using that part, or are you using that partnership to its full extent? Are you giving enough value? And yeah, I don't know. Tom, Dana, Christina, have you worked with the business model canvas? Tom hasn't. Dana?
Sorry. For those not watching the video screen, I'm shaking my head like this.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I haven't like worked with it in depth. I like how it breaks down all the various aspects of a company to so it's kind of easy to see what's important and what drives a company, what's their competitive advantage, how they generate revenue, like all of that is in a nice, easy to consume format.
Christina, have you used it before?
Yes, multiple times. I've learned about it at the MBA school the MBA program that I've done with IMD in Lausanne. And I've used it for working with the startups they had through their startup competition. And then I discovered something called the personal growth or career business model canvas, where you can apply this somehow to yourself. And I've done this with a couple of colleagues just because it's more interesting, like Dario was saying, to look at it together rather than by yourself. So I found it pretty powerful. It's just one view. You don't need to go to 20 pages to see everything.
Yeah, and as you said, developed by two Swiss people. One of them is Alex Ostwalder. We had the privilege of having him in an internal Google summit, and really great guy, really great talk. And that's when I got the idea, like, we should do one of these for security. So Alex, if you're listening, thank you for reminding us of this great framework. Before we go on, I thought, just to test it out, shall we do one? And I thought, why don't we do this for a company called Lego? And take 5 minutes to do this, and then we can think about how this would be different for security. I can see Christina's already smiling. Tom is starting to get a grin on his face, probably because he's buying Legos for his kids. Who wants to start? Like, what are some of the things you're thinking about? And then I'll show some of the stuff I found online later.
The first thing that comes to my mind is the movie Frozen.
Okay, and so where do I put that?
Key partnerships, the Walt Disney Corporation.
Okay, so I'm going to call that TV movie producers. Cool. That's cool. Any others? Just shout out. I'll just edit the Canvas live.
Users the kids.
Kids, other users?
Lego grown-ups.
Yes,
Grown-up.
absolutely. I'm thinking of the value proposition for me as a Lego grown-up. It's creativity and collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Creativity.
I mean, the decision makers in this case are usually the grown-ups. Like, they are the ones that buy the Lego for themselves or for the kids. So that's also an important audience to please. It's not just the kids, but it's the people who in the end swipe the credit card to order.
The grown-ups who love stepping on Legos on the floor.
On a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning, you come to wake up your kid and you step on one, and I remember that. Right. Let's talk more customer segments, kids and grown-ups. Any more sub things? Or
I think in general, educators. Educators, like, of all types, like educators as like traditional schools, but also there's a lot of cool. I mean, I've been at some of the best team building exercises involved Lego.
So both in key partnerships and customer segments, but probably more important in partnerships, YouTubers.
Yeah.
There's a very significant Lego YouTuber community.
Yeah, I remember. I sometimes watch the guy that has this insane city in some garage somewhere. It's amazing. Yeah.
There are retailers who sell Lego, but there's also stores that I'm not sure are sanctioned that resell Lego and Lego figures. So there's like a secondary market of I guess resellers.
I used that one a few Christmas ago when I wanted to give my wife a specific sports car that we have in Lego, and of course, there's no official set, so you go to one of those, and then you pay a few dollars for the plans, and then it sources from different brick stores, and then you get a bunch of envelopes at home, and you can build it. It's pretty awesome.
Maybe that's more of a channel, like the reseller.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like they sell directly online. They sell directly through their own Lego branded stores, and then they have a lot of resellers.
Okay. Any
And
other
direct
channels online?
online direct has gotten more significant for them.
But hold on, this is too easy now. I need to ask a challenging question. Why is the reseller market important in this context? What revenue does it generate for Lego? Or is it a valuable partnership in the sense of preserving an ecosystem that drives kind of initial first-hand sales?
I guess it's a bit of both, I would say.
Yeah, but we should be explicit, you know.
Yeah.
We're hard-nosed business people here.
Well, it drives up the cost of the Legos. So
No,
and Lego
it
sets and
drives them
wanting it.
down, right? Because people are now reusing Legos. It's like if you would remove the second-hand car market completely, like car manufacturers would love that because then they can sell new cars all the time.
No, but you have like after a Lego set is released, most of the time it skyrockets because of the secondary resellers, you know,
Okay.
and and then it drives the want of new sets.
So where does it
And
go? Relationships, channels, segments. Where do we put this?
I mean, what is a reseller in this case? Is the reseller like a retailer that buys Lego and then puts it in their shelf and waits until customers get them from their shelf, or is it a individual or organization that buys Lego and waits until they are more valuable and resells them? I think,
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm
or
not
is it
sure
the
if
one
they're
that I did?
official.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Dana.
I was just saying, to Dario's point, I'm not sure they're official Lego resellers. They just capitalize on the Lego market. So,
Let's just
that
leave
I'm
it
not
with
sure.
customer relationships because you can get to your Lego through a reseller. Any key activities? I'm going to put resources. I'm going to put patents, which they don't, I think, have anymore. I'm not so sure.
Oil?
Trademarks.
All the
Yeah,
materials.
Yeah, like it's they're reliant on fossil fuel prices, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they sued Mega Bloks because of their IP, and that the company's out of business now, right? So,
Yeah. I think in the
so
beginning they had a trademark like that, and that expired at some point. And in recent years, they've been fighting their competitors more with trademark infringements.
right.
So
Because that's the thing that doesn't expire.
let me
Yeah,
skip
they
ahead
do.
so that we don't stick with Lego too much. So and of course, Dana, I saw you were on this slide. I did some research before the
The
pod, and
magic.
I looked at a few YouTubers that were doing this and thought about it a bit, and it's what I was able to come up with. So the customer segments also had kids. You call them grown-ups. I call them parents, retailers, educators, same ones. The customer relationship, I think the business model canvas is more about the kind of relationship you have with your customers. So it's about brand love. They have a Lego club. They have user-generated designs. This one wasn't really clear to me. Channels, retail, online, and then TV movies was put here by some people, which I'm not sure if it's a channel to actually sell or if it's more like a TV producer, like key partnership. The value proposition was indeed creative, building, experimenting, high quality. It's good present. It's to retailers. It's a traffic drawer. I didn't know that. That's a really interesting one. That sometimes you put a product on your shelf, which we can talk about security in a moment as well. Not because you want to do raw sales, but because it brings people in the door for other stuff.
Sure. I mean,
Activity,
you set
yeah.
up like a running Lego train set in the shop display, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or even just a big Lego. Or when we go to a city and we see kids walk around with yellow Lego bags, we always like, oh wait, where are they coming from? Let's go get the newest catalog and let's maybe make a minifig or whatever. So
They also have like world-class Lego builders that'll go to like a mall and like set up a massive Lego display, which is a
yeah,
draw. So
exactly.
one of the things with retail, I think you need to tease apart are they sell through retailers, but they also have their own stores.
Sure,
And
yeah.
their own stores, I'm not sure are huge revenue generators, but I think it's what they use to drive the brand. So So there's kind of a difference between those two.
Yeah, I think they're more flagship stores. I mean,
Right.
Apple stores are a bad example because they're just generating more revenue than any drug dealers than per square meter. But like in general, they're at places where there's more high value customers.
Let's get over to the rest of the Lego one, and then we should think about how this applies to a security company. So I would love for you for already to start thinking about what type of security company we could potentially analyze, a fictitious one or a real one. Some of the key activities for Lego is production, sales, distribution, and someone said storytelling, which is very interesting because that's how if you see that as a product and you tell the story of your product actively as a key activity, I think it definitely helps. Resources, brand design, factories, patents, we talked about those. Partnerships, users are also partners. This comes back to these, they didn't put the YouTubers in here, by the way, but movie, TV, and game developers. The gaming industry was a great one for Lego as well. And this is what made me realize or remember how I used it in my startup. When you put this in front of a few people, they'd be like, oh, you could put game developers there. And then you'd be like, that's a great idea, right? And cost is cost of goods sold, royalties, marketing, and then revenue streams is, of course, the bricks that they sell, movies, merchandise. The fashion industry, there's lots of Lego fashion coming out now. So it's actually much bigger than I thought when I started doing this business model canvas for Lego. More stuff came up when I started researching it than I realized.
One other tease there difference. There's merchandising of making, like merchandising for movies and stuff. I also think Lego gets a lot of money through licensing because they don't manufacture specific things, but they give permission to companies to build products based on their licensing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good one. And that's also something we can talk about in a moment when we think about. So now let's think about a security business. We can take any business we know, or we can, if one of the businesses that one of us doesn't know, that someone else can describe it. Which one shall we take? How do we want to do this? If not, I'm going to propose something.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's talk about a business that is a abuse detection as a service. Okay, so I'm gonna call this abuse detection as a service, and the tagline will be something like, plug our thing into your stuff and abuse goes away. And I can already hear Dana thinking, what do you mean by abuse? We can call this fake comments. Let's call it content, accounts, transactions, something like this.
I was actually thinking something different. I hate when you use detection, because in the value prop you said stuff goes away, and so it's more than detection. It's prevention. It's you're actually, the company would actually help you probably enforce and stop abuse. So
it's remediation.
Or remediation. So in the description it should be abuse protection as a service, or abuse prevention as a service.
And I think in the typical business model Canva way, I would also push back on detection being a value proposition, because you don't want your customers to pay for detection. You want them to pay for the prevention.
And this is what's really interesting, right? All right, first thing, we know that it's the same as Lego or any other business, and this. We want to solve the customer's problem. And just telling them that this payment is wrong and it's already out the door is not solving their problem. They still had a wrong payment. They just know about it now, right? So we should always try and really solve the problem and not just detect, but also, you called it, Tom, mitigation, remediation, or prevent the next one. We need to do something, right? And I think that's a really, really good first lesson. We really want to solve the customer problem. I'm going to write it down here.
I was at a vendor event this Thursday when they promoted the statistic that 70% of signups generally to kind of consumer-oriented platforms or SaaS services are in some way fraudulent.
I would think it's probably higher.
Yeah.
There you go.
They probably have missed a few, but okay. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
It's an interesting ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so let's tease apart this business, right? Like, and how is a business model canvas different for a company that does abuse protection as a service? I changed the name. We already added value proposition detection, prevention, and mitigation remediation. I think those are almost the same thing. What
So
else is different?
I was thinking about this, and a lot, like some of the stuff, a lot of the items for a security company are the same as for a regular company. I just think their importance is different. And so like when you look at security of the software or the solution you're generating, like you need to make sure that what you're offering as a platform for other companies, because it's a security product, is like bulletproof, right? Or the most secure it can be. And then the other thing is for customers to use it or want to buy it, they need to have trust in the platform. So trust is really part of the product. And for other offerings, they could probably get away with a little less of a trust in the platform, a little or the product a little less secure, because the people are buying the actual hot thing itself, right? And but if you're offering a security product, you really need to foster this in the product.
How do you build that trust? Like, how can we build that trust if we're building this abuse protection as a service?
I think you need to talk about why customers should trust your platform, right? It becomes part of your value proposition that
Yeah.
you talk to about it. And then that also goes into like your accuracy of what your of kind of what you're detecting and preventing, and like like you have to, how much you catch has to be you know uh an important part of the product. You catch more bad accounts than your competitor, right? And so um you can always say that in marketing, but you really have to back up in the
Oh, that's
product
an
use.
interesting one, and I want to ping this to Tom. When the 3G networks or those GPRS, whatever was before, the mobile data networks in the US were coming up. You had Verizon and AT&T battling it out. So you had these commercials where you would see a map of the US, and then you would see red colored was, I think, Vodafone or Verizon, and blue colored was AT&T. And then one of them would say, "We now cover this piece more than others," right? So they were battling it out. They could do this, but none of the big tech companies, including the ones we work for, are saying we're having so many hacks per day. And even if we would say we have so many hacks per day, and someone else has fewer, it might just mean that, or they might have more. It might just mean that we're missing more of them because of the invisible line.
Mhm.
Or if we have more and they have less, they might just have a bad algorithm. So it's really like this comparison is not useful. How do you do this?
It's super abstract, right? And that's the problem. The beauty of the scenario that you describe with the telcos is that you can just put a map and say we do this, and they don't. And some people will say, well, I live there, so I'm not buying your stupid subscription. But I mean, the amount of variables that you describe in terms of, like, for example, like as kind of like a user, non-technically user friendly term as number of hacks, is just so ephemeral and so meaningless that it's hard to market. I think what was interesting when we were talking about like how to build a relationship based on trust or promote based on trust, there's a company that comes to mind immediately in my mind, which is Proton, right? So I think living in Switzerland, obviously, this is a very uh, it's a very high profile example, but like from kind of core of the product perspective, it's all about trust based on physical location, based on legislative frameworks, but also based on kind of engineering excellence and culture. So it draws on a couple of different strands to create that narrative of trust. And it's also, I think, realistically speaking, and I don't think it's unfair to the Proton guys to say, it's also a little bit based on kind of mistrust of others, right? So it's about creating a differential between their offering and the off-the-shelf offerings of the large US multinationals, right?
Yeah.
So
So
it's a differentiator. That they're using this as a differentiator. They're saying,
it's the differentiator.
don't be evil. I know "don't be evil" has been used before, but like that's what Proton says. It's like we're not making money out of anything you don't understand, because the only way we make money is what your credit card is being charged.
Transparency then. Christina, I want to bring it also back to you. Imagine you're building this business. What are some of the key things you would want to throw on this business model canvas immediately?
I wanted to actually say transparency, but I see you just wrote it. So I'm thinking at how to build trust, but I don't know if you asked me necessarily about value proposition. But let's stick with value proposition. I think the biggest value proposition for my customers would be if I help their business have less risk. Maybe I'm thinking too much in terms of risk, but I'm thinking of like, how do I reduce risk for the customer? Why would they want this thing, right? Because it would reduce abuse. Therefore, it would reduce, well, the risk of abuse because you can't fully reduce it. And then this gets translated into where do we get to the monetary value? Like, does this mean less wasted resources, less QPS utilized by their business in wasted, non-converted customers? So I'm going at that point, like, what would it mean for a customer who would want to buy this thing from us? And at the end of the day, it's either it increases top line or reduces bottom line, right?
Yeah. I think that's a really good one. Increase top line or improve bottom line.
Otherwise, I'd love to geek about differential privacy and how we would make this technically possible, but I think that's not quite for the business model campus.
Well, it's interesting because if you think about companies like OpenAI or Anthropic or others who are throwing insane amounts of money at users, allowing them to do a few, generate a few images or do some queries or even Google, right? So if 70% of the people that start on that platform are fraudulent, then that has like an impact on the energy consumption of the world, or definitely on their top line, bottom line. So I think the value proposition of reducing risk by lowering wasted resources is
it's reducing costs. Like if that's a value proposition, if detecting fake accounts being created or automatically created accounts, if that's one of the features, then you reduce costs that is being generated, that is as a follow-up from these accounts.
Yeah, so that's increasing the bottom line of the company. And by the way, these customers, let's talk a few of the customers that we would sell this protection as a service to, abuse protection as a service. I guess that would be other businesses, right?
Yeah, businesses that operate customer-facing or public-facing platforms.
Okay.
Retailers.
Yeah, we can do retailers. Yeah. Could we sell it to consumers and individuals? Or is that too much? Could like some plugin that you could install in your Outlook or Gmail or Proton to get rid of spam or stuff, something like this?
You could, depending on the product, right?
Okay.
It's also depending on how your customers perceive the responsibility. Like, who is responsible for not having malicious links in comments on news pages? Is it the newspaper or is it me as a user?
The other thing is it's hard to generate revenue from consumers for security products. Like, that's the age-old problem.
Okay. So this is another thing. Like for security businesses, it's probably easier not to go direct to consumers. Sometimes you have these YouTube advertisers that say, I forget the names of these companies, that you have some vault product and then they do your digital identity protection. And we should maybe review some of those at some point in the future. But I never pay for them, and I always wonder what can they really do for me.
One of the questions I'm asking on this front, though, sorry, Dana, and I agree with you, it is hard, but is that I don't think it was always this hard. Like, if I recall in the kind of medium past, like kind of mid 2000s and onwards, personal computing, like a lot of people paid for AV software, for example. Like it was a far more common thing to have people like have a home edition of McAfee that they would kind of pick up, for $30 when they would buy a new PC or upgrade to a new OS. And basically their lunch started being eaten by Microsoft primarily, but the native or OS kind of level capabilities, whereby third parties then found themselves a bit squeezed out. But it wasn't always the case that it was hard to sell, I think, directly to security to people when the internet was younger. I think it's interesting to ask, maybe in the context of the product that we're building here, why that has changed.
That's what I tried to say when I said who do people perceive to be responsible. In those days, everybody felt like I'm irresponsible if I run my computer without an antivirus software. And now it's much more, why didn't my email provider detect that attachment? Why doesn't my browser block me from downloading malicious software? So I think the security perimeter has changed. And so if you're thinking about customer segments here, one differentiator really could be maybe making a product that puts the end user into control of this, because they don't trust the big technology companies to really protect them against.
Isn't that a value proposition in generic, Dario, allowing the customer or the user to control security decisions? And basically, like, we can set a default for all our customers, but then allow the customers to say, no, for the executives, I want the bar higher. So I'm just dialing it up. And for someone who doesn't have anything important in their account, I dial it down.
Unfortunately, some companies do the reverse.
Yes.
Like, I don't want to hurt.
But maybe I'd like to say, I had a few thoughts about channels, because I think for something like this, when we say abuse protection as a service, where you connect something into something else, like the channel is very important, because business customers, they rarely want an additional vendor. So one of the channels has to be platform specific extension channels. Like, for example, there's a lot of Microsoft jobs, a lot of companies who just buy everything that they need. They check, does Microsoft have it? And if they have it, they get it from there. And if they don't, they look on the marketplace. And you get like credits, you get money that you can spend on the marketplace. So having something that sells through, for example, a Microsoft marketplace is so much easier for business customers to source. That's something where you need an additional contract and an additional vendor relationship.
And for these type of products, it's more even like AWS, like the cloud marketplace, or Azure marketplace, like where you can just roll out the abuse service.
Google Cloud.
But I think you're right.
Plugins. Yeah.
The one of the things having worked a lot with like startups and how they're trying to sell, a lot of security companies will start with direct sales, and then you really need to scale your sales and your customer base. So they'll do that by moving to a reseller network, or through providers like cloud providers, platform providers, to help them scale. And so I think we need to include that as part of the security business, because that's the only way you can. I mean, it's one of the major ways to grow a security company. Direct sales costs a lot of money for a company, a security company.
Yeah, so I'm going to write scaling challenge. Christina, why don't you talk to us a bit about the customer relationships? Like, if you want me to, like, I can share you what I found about Lego. So it was about the brand love. They have a Lego club that they use. They've user-generated designs. It's all the ways they build relationships with the customer. If you're a security company providing abuse protection as a service, how do you build a relationship with the customer? Especially if you're going through Amazon, AWS, or Azure, or Google Cloud Marketplace, where there's someone in the middle.
I'm not quite sure. The typical things coming to mind is more connected to the channels, like like a direct self-service portal where you actually see what was blocked for you, or some sort of interface where you configure things, and you can even gamify it, and you say, try to instill good habits around not opening spam emails and such. So kind of building this educational piece, if we're talking about end users. With regards to enterprises, I mean, I think of customer relationships as a way of how do you show the customer that you deliver the value that's not just theoretical or like in the marketing material. And that can be education, it can be, I don't know, some sort of cost estimate. This is how much money you saved. I don't know. Other thoughts? I've seen some comments on chat.
I think developer relations might be an important one.
I added those in there.
If I remember, 10 years ago in San Francisco, like Twilio used to make a lot of advertisement to tell developers how much easier it is to use their APIs than others. And so you build up a relationship through conferences and certification path and all of these things with the developers that makes it less comparable to, then pricing and other things become less of a factor because developers already have implemented it before it even scales.
I'm going to pick up the pace. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's an end user piece of this too, that even like if a company's using your solution, they want to abstract that it's your solution, but you at least need to give them the tools so they can troubleshoot like end user problems and have a way for you to understand if the end users are struggling with your protection systems, because that seems to be a downfall of a lot of the security solutions I've seen. Like you look at some of these large platforms that have abuse protections that are just flat out getting the wrong answers and causing problems for customers, and it seems like they don't understand that that's an issue.
So you're talking about the feedback loop back to the customer.
Yeah, because a lot of times you won't want direct end user interaction for your security solution. It has to go through whoever bought your product, but you need to make sure you have those mechanisms.
I'm going to quickly dump because we're really, this discussion is going deeper. So maybe we should do a second episode of this. I'm going to dump something in, right? So the key activities here would be like develop the software, right? It's like marketing and sales. And then it's also, I think, a little bit of intelligence to figure out what's going there and research.
Yes.
And Tom is saying voting for a part 2. So then maybe what I'll do is I'll stop here and I'll start summarizing what we've discussed so far. I think for the value proposition part of the business model concept, we said that building the trust with the customer is the biggest thing we need to do through many, many different ways. Solving their problem, having a good experience for end users, but for them as well, showing the performance, reducing risk. In customer relationships, we said we need to show the value, which even can be done through like some portal with some dashboards. And in channels, it's really important to focus on the scaling, to find a way to achieve scale, because the initial wave of customers through direct business is just not sustainable. And that's why you have to get partners, developer relationships, marketplaces, and all those kind of things. In terms of customer segments, we basically said that the abuse is the responsibility of the product provider. And so the end user is not really our customer, although they are our user. And this comes back to a classic inverted problem where you have an admin, you have an attacker, and you have an end user, and sometimes also a decision maker, and they all have to be happy except for the attacker, of course. They need to be unhappy. So, but any other thoughts to summarize the customer segment block, and then we can stop it there for this week's episode.
I have a challenge for the part 2 of this episode, is that everyone needs to come with a proposed name for the business.
Yes.
Yes. I was thinking we should name it Inverted Co.
Well, don't give us your names now.
Give it away.
Make it
We'll
beauty
beep it out.
pageant thing, okay? We
So
can't just give it to you because it's your birthday.
Dario will come with a logo already made.
Nice, Dario.
Yeah, ChatGPT will help me, or Gemini, or Midjourney.
Christina, any final thoughts about our customer segments, and then we'll close this week's episode.
No, not really. I think I've been so long in enterprise, but that's an interesting thought exercise maybe for next time.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you all, as always, for connecting to our podcast recording. I think we've learned a lot. When you do security business, you have to show the value to your customers. Make sure that when you build it, you get ready to achieve scaling, and that the biggest value proposition we have. All of these things lead to building trust, so that your customer can trust their own product, because what we are building in this fictitious business fixes their abuse. They can trust you because you really solve their problem, and they can trust their own stuff again. So I think those are three really big lessons. And to all of you that are listening or watching, thank you so much for taking part of this journey where we keep talking about everything that's inverted, where success is when nothing happens. See you all in the next episode, where we do another round of the security business model canvas. And thank you to Dario, Dana, and Tom, and especially also for Christina for joining. See you all in the next one.